How do INFPs express their anger? Before I can answer, please consider subscribing to the channel so I don't find myself pouring sugar into gas tanks, and hit the alert bell so you can be notified when I go live. That being said, what is up, ego hackers? I'm C.S. Joseph, here to answer your questions on any topic Jungian analytical psychology, also known as the four sides of the mind, also known as four sides dynamics. And the source of today's question is Quora, as usual. So let's take a look at that question. How do INFPs express their anger? Alright, so 33 answers. Apparently, INFPs, are angry people? Maybe? No, I don't think so. I just think they're insanely opinionated, but that's probably for our benefit. Alright, so, Trini, Cariaga, is this the Yellow Power Ranger? Is it possible? Maybe? She is an illustrator, a character designer, a writer, and a painter. I can't speak for others, but I can talk about myself. Wow, you might be an ISFP though. Honestly and oddly, I don't really get angry. I get frustrated and then I get aggravated, but I've never really been angry. When I feel frustration about something or someone, there's a couple levels of anger I go through. Level 1. Wow, she actually wrote out all of the levels. Secret pettiness. I will do things that are petty or just throw shade without the person knowing or seeing. For example, there's a girl who drove me nuts at school I went to. We never really talked, but sort of get back at her for annoying me, just being overall annoying and unwinding as a person. I took a photo of her on her Facebook and heavily referenced it for one of my villain characters in a story. She nor her friends follow me or my art, so would recognize me as a model for it. That is a very arrogant man who tries to teach young artists how to draw, but in the most artistically damaging ways. I left arrogant and honest reviews of his how-to books on Amazon. I do silly little petty things that I make myself feel better and feel like I got them back. Harmless but silly things. Level 2, I remove myself from them. I am not going to actually read that. Nope. Level 3, I confront them. And normally I never get past level 2. I tend to not really harbor or cultivate anger. I also never held a grudge. Okay, yeah, honestly, this is an ISFP talking. This is not an INFP. Don't listen to her opinion because it's not appropriate for here. Alright, Safa Imran, who says, I'm an INFP. Please note I can't speak for all INFPs, even though we may share a personality type, we're still different. As an INFP, I can safely say that there are two ways we express our anger. Being quiet, ignoring, avoiding, outbursts of densely concentrated rage. Honestly speaking, we don't, oh my gosh, and the typical FI Hero book that they always write. Yeah, I am not reading that. No, thank you. Melissa Duffy, qualified administrator of MBTI for organizations, career, personal, and couples. Great question. INFPs can get greatly distressed about feeling angry. One way that INFPs may express anger is actually to withdraw from relationship when angry rather than advance. This withdrawal provides the introverted INFP the needed time to process thoughts and emotions and reflect on what to say before proceeding. INFPs may have tendency to brood, to ruminate, and to create mental scenarios not based on objective reasoning, or reality, I gotta add that in there, but rather subjective, distorted concerns, feelings, and fears about their strong need for harmony being disrupted. When angry, INFPs will tend to find fault with both others and themselves, and have an exaggerated sense of responsibility for the slightest perceived disharmony. Not necessarily. I see why this person is saying that, but not necessarily. INFP's cutting edge is to be able to get more objectively clear about his or her own position when there is conflict, to be able to express anger. Sort of. This may be difficult for an INFP because by nature INFP sees situations from all possible viewpoints, such as gaining a giant diamond the size of the living room from all its different facets. Yeah, that's accurate. Okay. INFPs who have low scores and they're, okay, no. Gross, MBTI. Gross. No, thank you. No, thank you. Gosh, how many more books are there to read on this here? Ryan Smith, who lives in the United States of America. Apparently that's important. There seems to be a secret wall no one talks about that keeps the lid on something you don't want to happen. People like to think we're too weak to show anger or we cry like babies. I'll tell you a secret. That wall we have as INFPs was built for a reason. We'd rather cry or avoid what's making us angry than having to express what's behind that wall. If you somehow drive us to that point where we open that wall, you're in for a world of pain. You deserve everything that's coming. No, that's not necessarily true, actually. People don't actually deserve that. Maybe you're just overreacting. I'm also a Cancer, so the bottled anger only intensifies and deepens. Okay, astrology is not necessarily accurate in that regard. There's something to astrology, but to be honest, like there's like 4 signs missing, and the calendars are different, and it's just outdated. It needs to be updated, quite frankly. There's a reason we keep it bottled in and never use it. It's like setting a grizzly bear to lose her cubs within a crowded neighborhood. Okay, yeah. All right, there's no point in me answering further. So some points were good. Most of the points are not that great. How do INFPs express their anger? Well, first and foremost, they do it through avoidance. They basically end up avoiding people because it's like, okay, wow, if you're going to make me uncomfortable, if you're not going to make me feel good, then why are you a priority to me? Why are you a priority? And then because of that, they just basically ignore you and pretend as if you don't even exist. And it's literally cold shoulder treatment first is like the thing that you would notice the most about an INFP. If you're being cold shouldered, if you're being ignored, if they're being super indifferent to you, that means they're angry to you. That's the first tall tale sign. And it's because SI child demands its need to be comfortable at all times. And it's like... and you behaving in a certain way that can make them angry makes them feel unwanted. And if you're harming their reputation, that can be even worse. And it's kind of interesting how Trini put it in levels, although that's kind of more ISFP levels. But from an INFP standpoint, it's a lot different. The most sensitive thing, the most damaging thing that you could do to an INFP is to destroy their reputation or cause people to think less of them. They are so deathly afraid of that. And that's why INFPs are so sensitive to blackmail on a consistent basis. If you want to control an INFP, just blackmail them. Just like, an ISFP. Blackmail them too. Oftentimes, also even from just like how extroverted feeling inferiors, so INTPs and ISTPs can be guilted, and even FE child, those 4 types, so TPs, they can be guilted into having sex with people. You can actually blackmail ISFPs and INFPs into having sex with you as well. Make sure that you FI heroes out there are aware of your weakness to blackmail so you can prevent people from utilizing this manipulative strategy to get into your pants. I highly recommend that. So what you do when you're being blackmailed, you play the truth card, just so you know. That's like, you have to seriously deal with the reputation hits. Because reputation is so subjective that it kind of doesn't matter if you have a bad reputation, because you can create a new reputation, reinvent yourself using that law of power at any moment, so that solves that problem. Anyway, back onto the topic at hand. So if ignoring doesn't work and they're continued to being annoyed by you, or they're continuing to be upset with you in some capacity, they'll start to be petty, basically, and they'll start taking a subtle passive aggressive action. So passive aggression is the next thing. So ignoring first, followed by passive aggression, and then if that fails, then they're going to get into overt aggression. They'll actually become very aggressive, and in some cases, INFPs may actually harm the physical environment around them in order to make their point. But usually that only happens when their reputation is absolutely being destroyed. If they see you spreading false rumors about them, or saying things that aren't true about them, or things that they don't believe are true. It could actually be true, but they don't believe it's true, because sometimes INFPs are not aware of how they're coming off to others due to the SE trickster. Then they actually will become extremely ragey. And then as a result of that, they'll believe that they're justified to basically destroy you in some capacity, and they become extremely ISTP ragey, a huge rage fest. It's like going Super Saiyan mode, basically, when that happens. It's not very common, but if you destroy their reputation, you harm their status in some capacity, it will get faster and faster to that point. So it's something to be aware of. The problem is that INFPs are heavily at risk of becoming indignant, which means their anger is not actually justified in the first place. So their rage is not actually justified in the first place. Remember the definition of indignance. It is becoming upset at something as a result of perceived unfair treatment. And because INFP is all about perception and they don't actually verify their beliefs, they can believe that they are justified, they can believe that you're destroying their reputation, when reality is you're just trying to make them not be a charlatan. And this happens to ESTPs consistently, because ESTPs are constantly exposing INFPs, and INFPs out of all the types are the types that do not want to be exposed. And exposing them is what cultivates their anger the most, right? So exposing gets them into that overt raging mode, like the fastest, basically. Even though, with other things that would just annoy them, whatever, they'll just ignore you, pretend you don't exist, or then they'll get super passive aggressive. But if you want them going full aggression mode, well, that's when you start exposing them to other people, especially people they respect. And they will literally harbor hatred towards you. Hopefully later in the life of the INFP will actually not harbor hatred towards you. That's actually a really nice shirt, and that's pretty awesome. Apparently, Railgun is trying out shirts for me while I'm filming for YouTube, but, it happens, and I love my wife. So, that being said, INFPs, just understand that if you're getting really, really angry at somebody and getting very aggressive and ragey towards them, ask yourself this question first. Are they actually trying to help me by exposing one of my flaws that needs to be exposed? Or are they actually really trying to actually destroy me? You have to ask why. If you don't ask why, well, then you're going to be in a really bad situation. Otherwise, folks, this is how INFPs express their anger. If you would like to have your chance of your question being answered on this channel, please post it on Quora and tag me, or leave it as a comment below. If you want a guaranteed answer for your question or any of your questions, become an Ego Hacker Initiate at csjoseph.life/members and post your question as a comment on our Initiate membership page, where I'm answering all of your questions during a private live stream each month. Anyway, folks, with all that being said, I'll see you guys tonight.